The air smelled of roasted meat, perfume, and something faintly metallic, like tension dressed up for a party. My father's retirement celebration was in full swing when I arrived, and the backyard glowed under strings of golden lights. Laughter rippled through the crowd, blending with the faint hum of music from the old speakers he loved. Everyone seemed happy, but I knew better. I'd spent a lifetime reading the space between smiles. My stepmother, Diane, had organized everything, the decorations, the speeches, the catering, but somehow, even from a distance, I could feel her eyes tracking me. She never forgave me for being my father's favorite. I almost turned back to my car when I saw her, but then my father spotted me and waved. His face lit up the way it always did when he saw me. That was the only reason I'd come. "There's my girl," he called out, his voice cracking over the chatter. "I was beginning to think you forgot about us." I smiled and hugged him, inhaling the scent of his aftershave mixed with barbecue smoke. "I wouldn't miss it," I said. My heart softened for a moment until I heard the voice I'd been dreading. "Well, look who finally crawled out from work." Ethan's smirk was already in place as he walked over, beer in hand, his shirt half untucked. My stepbrother was everything I wasn't: loud, charming, adored by people too shallow to see through him. "Still playing hero at the hospital?" he said, clinking his bottle against the edge of the table. "Must be exhausting pretending to care all day." A few of his friends laughed. I ignored him. The last time I'd seen Ethan, he'd been trying to sell my mother's old piano without asking anyone. "Nice seeing you too, Ethan," I said, brushing past him. Inside the house, everything looked almost too perfect. Diane had arranged the photos so that her face appeared in every frame, front and center, in moments she hadn't even lived through. My mother's pictures were gone. I stopped at the hallway where her portrait used to hang and felt a familiar sting in my chest. "You moved Mom's picture," I said when Diane approached. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, I just thought the wall needed something brighter." Brighter," I repeated. "You mean without her?" She tilted her head. "You always twist everything into drama, dear. It's exhausting." I swallowed the anger that threatened to spill. This wasn't the place. Not yet. Dinner started just after sunset. Diane clinked her glass and motioned for silence. "Before we begin," she said sweetly, "I'd like to make a small announcement." My father looked up, confused. He hadn't mentioned anything to me about speeches besides his own. As many of you know, maintaining a home this size can be a lot for one man. So after much thought and discussion, we decided it was time for some changes. Ethan grinned beside her, that smug, knowing grin that made my stomach twist. "What changes?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Diane's eyes sparkled. "Oh, darling. Your father agreed to transfer the house to Ethan. It just makes sense for the future, with him being here to manage things." I froze. My father blinked in confusion. "Diane, what are you talking about?" "You signed the papers, sweetheart," she said, her tone gentle but rehearsed. "Last week, remember?" My father frowned. "No, I didn't." My pulse pounded in my ears. "You forged his signature," I said flatly. Every head turned toward me. A few guests whispered. Ethan raised his hands like he was calming a child. "Whoa, let's not get crazy here. It's just property." "Not just property," I snapped. "It's Mom's home. You don't get to erase her." Diane's voice hardened. "She's been gone for over a decade. It's time to move on." My father's hand trembled as he reached for mine. "I don't remember signing anything," he murmured, his eyes darting between us. "We'll sort this out later." But I already knew there wouldn't be a later. Diane never did anything without covering her tracks. I excused myself before I said something I couldn't take back. Out on the porch, the night air hit me like a slap. The cicadas screamed from the trees, a steady rhythm under my racing thoughts. That house was the last thing tying me to my mother, and they were stealing it while smiling in my father's face. I stared through the window at them, Diane laughing with guests, Ethan pouring himself another drink, my father shrinking into silence. They thought I'd let it go. They thought I'd walk away like I always did. But as I stood there in the dark, a different thought began to form, sharp and deliberate. They had taken too much already. This time I would take something back. Not with shouting. Not with tears. Quietly, carefully, permanently. The night carried on with more laughter, but I didn't hear it anymore. I was already planning what came next. I didn't sleep that night. I drove back to my apartment, pacing from window to window as the hours bled into dawn. My father's voice kept echoing in my head. I don't remember signing anything. That meant there was still a chance. If I could prove the signature was forged, I could expose them both. But it wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about humiliation. How Diane had smiled at me while stabbing him in the back. How Ethan had grinned like he'd won some competition I never agreed to join. I opened my laptop and began searching property records, public filings, anything related to the transfer. There it was filed just 2 days before the party, electronically signed. The digital certificate showed my father's name. But the IP address belonged to a network registered under DH Associates, Diane's private company. I felt my pulse steady. They'd made it too easy. But if I wanted revenge, it had to be more than legal payback. It had to hurt. I drove back to my father's house the next afternoon under the pretense of checking on him. The party decorations were still half taken down, the lawn littered with ribbons and plastic cups. He looked tired when he opened the door. "Hey, sweetheart," he said weakly. "Rough night." "Yeah," I said softly. "Can we talk?" We sat in the living room. His hands shook slightly as he poured himself coffee. "I've been trying to remember," he said. "I swear I never signed those papers." "You didn't?" I said, sliding my phone across the table. "That's Diane's business IP. She did it. Probably used an old scan of your signature." His eyes widened. "You're sure?" "Positive." He stared at the floor for a long time. "If I confront her, she'd deny it. She always does." "Then don't confront her," I said. "Let me handle it." He looked up, startled. "You're not thinking of doing anything stupid?" "Nothing illegal," I lied, sighed. "I just want peace." I smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Dad. You'll get it." That night, I parked down the street from Diane's boutique, the little store she owned downtown. She used it as her personal empire, showing off overpriced jewelry and claiming to empower women, though everyone knew she mostly sold to her social circle. I waited until the lights went out and she left in her sleek white SUV. Then I walked around to the alley, where the back door always had the same cheap lock she never bothered to replace. A paperclip and a bit of patience, and I was inside. The smell of perfume and new leather hit me instantly. I wasn't here to steal. I was here to plant. I'd copied her digital signature key from the public filing site earlier, enough to create an identical trail. Using a flash drive, I uploaded a few falsified documents' financial irregularities. Fake client complaints. One even suggesting tax evasion. I named the folder Q3 Review and set the timestamp to 3 months ago. Then I logged into her email, which she carelessly left saved on her work computer, and forwarded the files to her own accountant. The dominoes were lined up. I just had to wait. The next morning, I played innocent. I called Ethan. "Hey," I said lightly, "can you come by Dad's place? He's been asking for you." "Why?" "So you can lecture me about morality again." "No," I said calmly. "Just come." He arrived half an hour later, smelling like cheap whiskey and arrogance. My father was in the kitchen, quiet but observant. "I heard you've been busy," I said, setting a cup of coffee in front of him. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what it means." I opened my laptop and showed him the filing record. "Your mother forged Dad's signature." He stared, trying to mask his panic. "You can't prove that. Already did." I clicked another tab in email chain between Diane and her accountant that I had drafted and sent from her device. "Seems your mom's got bigger problems than the house now. Tax evasions, serious business." His jaw clenched. "What did you do?" "Nothing you wouldn't have done to me." My father stood, confused. "What's going on?" "Ask him," I said. Ethan glared at me. "You think you're clever, but this will blow back on you." "Maybe," I said. "But by then, you'll be too busy cleaning up her mess." He stormed out, calling Diane on the way. My father looked heartbroken, not angry. I didn't want this to become a war. It already was, I said softly. Later that night, I watched from my car as Diane's SUV screeched into her boutique parking lot. The lights flicked on inside. Through the window, I saw her pacing, phone pressed to her ear, face pale. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. The damage was done. I felt no guilt, just a calm, cold satisfaction I hadn't known I was capable of. They wanted to steal my mother's memory. Instead, I'd given them something else to remember. But I wasn't done yet. Not until they felt the loss the way I had. The house was just the beginning. 2 days passed before the storm truly hit. I was sitting in my car outside the hospital, finishing a night shift, when my phone buzzed nonstop. First came the texts from Ethan, angry, panicked, scattered with half-typed threats. Then came the voicemail from Diane's accountant. "This is highly irregular," he said, his voice clipped. "The tax board will be contacting her within the week." I closed my eyes and let the satisfaction wash over me. I'd expected chaos, but I hadn't expected how intoxicating it would feel. For once, they were the ones scrambling. For once, I was in control. Still, revenge is never clean. My father called later that afternoon, his voice tired. "Your stepmother's having a rough time," he said quietly. "The store's under review and she's blaming me." "Of course she is," I said. "That's what she does when she can't lie her way out." He sighed. "I don't know what's happening, but the police showed up this morning asking about her business records. She swore she'd fix it, but—" He trailed off. "But what?" "She's packing. She said something about taking Ethan and leaving town for a while." I felt my jaw tighten. "Did she say where?" "No, just that she needs space." The line went silent for a moment before he added, "I wish things didn't have to end like this." My throat ached, but I forced myself to sound steady. "They made their choice, Dad." I hung up before the guilt could sink too deep. Later that evening, I drove by the boutique again. The lights were off, the windows dark. A closed until further notice sign hung on the door. I almost smiled until I noticed something strange. Across the street, in the reflection of a parked car, I saw Ethan's face watching from the driver's seat. He didn't see me at first. I turned off my headlights and waited, heartbeat slow and deliberate. What was he doing there? After 10 minutes, he started his car and pulled away, heading toward the main road. I followed from a distance, my headlights still off. He drove across town, past the empty mall, till he turned into a narrow side street. I recognized the old storage lot near the river. He parked beside a unit and unlocked it. I waited, counting the seconds until the light inside flicked on. Then I got out and crept closer, keeping to the shadows. Through a crack in the metal door, I saw stacks of boxes labeled with Diane's boutique logo. But when Ethan opened one, it wasn't jewelry inside. It was cash. Bundles of it. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about tax evasion. They'd been laundering money, probably using the boutique as a front for years. Suddenly, my revenge didn't feel like vengeance anymore. It felt like justice. I took out my phone, recording everything quietly. When I zoomed in on the papers inside the box, I saw something that made my pulse spike. My father's name on business registration documents. They had been using his identity as part of their scheme. My father wasn't just collateral. Here's a pawn. I stepped back, breath shaky, trying not to make a sound. But the metal beneath my shoe creaked. Ethan froze. His head jerked toward the door. "Who's there?" I backed up slowly, phone still in hand. The door slammed open. "You?" he spat, eyes wide. "You followed me?" "You're using Dad's name on fake accounts," I said. "You're going to jail, Ethan." He laughed, harsh, loud, desperate. "You think you're some kind of hero? You think you can ruin us? You already did that yourself." He lunged toward me, but I stepped back fast, phone clutched tight. "Give me the phone," he growled. "You don't know what you're dealing with." "I know enough." I hit send, uploading the video to a secure drive. His eyes widened. "What did you do?" "Insurance," I said. He looked like he might hit me, but instead he grabbed one of the boxes and hurled it across the room. Money scattered across the concrete. You think you've won? You're just like your mother, always pretending to be pure while you destroy everything around you. The mention of my mother snapped something inside me. Don't talk about her. Why not? She was pathetic. I didn't let him finish. Shut up. The sound echoed, sharp and final. He stepped back, smirking. Go ahead, scream all you want. Nobody cares what you say. You'll care, I said quietly, turning away. Soon enough, I left him standing there among the boxes, shaking and furious. That night, I sent the video anonymously to the authorities. Within 48 hours, news broke about a boutique owner and her son under investigation for fraud. Diane's face was all over the local news, pale and perfect, hiding behind sunglasses as reporters shouted questions. My father called again, voice trembling. They're saying Diane's been arrested. Ethan's being questioned. I said evenly. Did you know about any of this? He asked. No, I lied. But maybe now you'll finally see who they really are. They were still my family, he whispered. I hesitated. So was I. When we hung up, I sat in silence, watching the story replay on my screen. I should have felt relief. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, all I felt was hollow. Revenge never fills the emptiness, it just changes its shape. But even as that thought flickered through me, I knew it wasn't over. Ethan was still out there. And men like him didn't go down quietly. The morning after Diane's arrest felt strangely quiet. Like the city was holding its breath. I woke up to a string of unread messages, some from coworkers who'd seen the news, others from distant relatives suddenly checking in. Everyone wanted the inside scoop, the details, the gossip. But I didn't respond to any of them. I poured my coffee, sat by the kitchen window, and watched the sun crawl over the rooftops. I'd spent so many years letting that family dictate how I felt. For the first time, I just let the silence stay. But peace never lasts long when people like Ethan are involved. That afternoon, as I left the hospital after another long shift, I noticed my tires had been slashed. All 4 clean cuts. I didn't need to guess who'd done it. The security footage confirmed it later. Ethan's car pulling up just before midnight, his hood drawn low. He wanted me to know it was him. Wanted me to feel unsafe. I reported it, of course, but deep down I knew this was personal, not criminal. It wasn't about money or reputation anymore. It was about pride. The next day I came home to find my mailbox stuffed with torn envelope letters I'd sent to my dad years ago. Returned, shredded, written over in red marker with words like LIAR and snake. My stomach turned. But I didn't call anyone. I'd learned by now that confrontation was what he wanted. Attention was his oxygen. Denying him, that was my revenge. A week passed, then 2. Diane remained in custody while investigators combed through her boutique records. They found over $200,000 in undeclared cash flow, offshore accounts, and fake vendor invoices. My father's name appeared in over a dozen transactions, all without his knowledge. When the story finally broke in the larger papers, it wasn't just a headline, it was humiliation. Everyone in town knew. The boutique's glossy reputation turned to poison overnight. My father, though, refused to see the truth. He visited her in jail, begged her to explain, and when she told him it was all a misunderstanding, he believed her. Always did. He called me afterward, his voice tight with anger. You happy now? He snapped. You've destroyed our family's name. I didn't destroy anything, I said quietly. I just stopped protecting lies. You're cruel, he said, and hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the blank phone screen. Cruel. That word stuck like a shard in my throat. Maybe he was right. Maybe revenge had made me cruel. But then I pictured Abby crying in that cold, empty house years ago, and the doubt burned away. Cruelty was letting someone suffer and pretending it was love. A few days later, I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. My heart stopped. I pushed it open carefully, every nerve alert. Inside, drawers were pulled out, a vase smashed on the floor. My laptop was gone, along with a few files from my desk. The ones about the investigation. I didn't even have to guess. I called the police, filed a report, and waited. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the sound of that door creaking open, imagining Ethan's shadow moving through my house. The police found his fingerprints on the broken vase, and when they tried to question him, he'd already skipped town. Diane's lawyer claimed he'd fled out of fear, that he couldn't handle the media pressure. But I knew the truth. He was scared because he realized he'd lost control. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my father again. His voice was shaking. "He's gone," he said. Ethan left a note. Said he can't stay where everyone hates him. Said it's my fault. His breath hitched. I don't know what to do anymore. I closed my eyes. "You let him become what you wanted," I said. "You let both of them poison everything. Shh, you think you're so perfect, don't you?" He spat suddenly. "You think because you have a good job and a daughter who listens to you, that you're better than us?" "No," I said softly. "I just learned what not to be." We didn't speak again after that. Months passed. Diane took a plea deal: tax fraud, financial misrepresentation, community service, and a suspended sentence. My father stayed with her through it all. They sold their house to pay legal fees, moved into a small rental on the outskirts of town. I heard from mutual acquaintances that he'd started drinking more, blaming me for everything. Maybe he believed it. Maybe it made things easier. I stopped checking. Abby graduated high school that spring, top of her class. Watching her walk across that stage, confident and glowing, was the first time I felt truly free. She'd seen everything, the cruelty, the manipulation, the coldness, and somehow chose kindness anyway. That night, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she said, "Do you ever regret it? What you did to them?" I've thought about it for a while. Sometimes, I admitted. But regret doesn't mean wrong. It just means you remember. She nodded, leaning her head against my shoulder. "I think they were already gone long before you stopped helping them." That made me smile. "You're probably right." For a while, things were calm, quiet. Then one morning, I opened my mail and found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photo. Diane sitting on a bus bench, her eyes hollow, her clothes wrinkled. Scrawled on the back in familiar handwriting, "Happy now." I stared at it for a long time, unsure if it was meant to guilt me or warn me. Either way, it didn't work. I threw it in the trash. But later that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how revenge isn't a clean wound. It's a scar that keeps aching when it rains. I'd exposed their lies, torn down the walls they built, but somewhere in the rubble, part of me had stayed trapped. One weekend, I drove out to the river, to that same storage lot where everything had started. The police had sealed the place months ago, but the tape was gone now, fluttering in the wind. I stood there for a long time, staring at the rusted door, and felt the weight of everything that had happened. The betrayal, the anger, the satisfaction, the emptiness. All of it. Then I took out my phone and deleted the last copy of the video I'd kept. It was over. For real this time. A few weeks later, Abby got accepted into her dream university, and we moved to a smaller place closer to campus. We spent the summer painting her new room, laughing, planning, dreaming. Life didn't feel heavy anymore. One evening, while unpacking boxes, I found an old family photo me, my father and my mother before she died. We were sitting in the backyard, sunlight spilling through the trees. I stared at my father's younger face and whispered, "I hope you find peace too." I didn't forgive him, not yet, but I let the anger go. Maybe that was enough. A year later, I got one final message. An unknown number again, but this time it wasn't venom. It was a short voicemail. "Kate?" My father's voice said quietly. "She's gone. Diane passed away last night. I don't expect you to care, but I thought you should know. I'm sorry. For everything." His voice cracked at the end, and then the line went dead. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shock. Just a strange, deep calm. The kind you feel when the storm finally burns itself out. I didn't call him back, but I whispered into the quiet, "I forgive you. Not for him, but for me." Because some stories don't end with justice or revenge, they end with release. That Christmas, Abby and I cooked dinner together. Just the two of us. No big house, no fancy table, no tension hiding beneath forced smiles. Just laughter, warmth, and the smell of cinnamon in the air. As we sat down to eat, she said, "There's plenty of room this year." I smiled, my chest tight with something that felt like peace. "There always will be," I said. I looked out the window, snow starting to fall, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel haunted. I didn't feel angry. I just felt free. They once said there wasn't room for me or for Abby or for the kind of love that doesn't come with conditions. But now, in our small, imperfect little world, there was room for everything that mattered. And maybe that was the real revenge, not the ruin, not the punishment. But the peace that comes after you finally stop trying to make broken people love you, right?